Chapter 3, Test Review. Okay, we're going to take this fraction and turn it into a decimal. So pause the video, and then I'll show you the answer on the next slide. So to turn this fraction into a decimal, we're going to forget about the 4 for a minute, and we're going to do 3 divided by 8. Okay, we're going to say 8 doesn't go into 3, so I need to put 0.0. It goes in there 0 times. How many times does 8 go into 30? It goes in there 3 times. So 3 times 8 is 24. I subtract and get 6 left over. So I need to add another 0 to bring down because I still have some left over. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. Subtract, and there's 4 left over. I add another 0 to bring down. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. And finally I have none left over. So my final answer would be 4.375. Next question, 8/11 plus 19 over 22. Pause the video and then I'll show you how to do it. When we add fractions, we have to get common denominators. So my common denominator is going to be 22. And my second fraction is already out of 22. My first one, I have to say 11 times 2, so 8 times 2 is 16. I add my numerators and get 35, keep the same denominator, and then I change that into, it's an improper fraction, I change it into a mixed number, is 1 and 13 over 22. Okay, next question, I need to simplify them. I have some variables being raised to exponents. So to simplify those, since I'm multiplying, they have the same base. I keep the base, and I add the exponent, so I get -7. But then I say, oh, I can't keep my answer with a negative exponent. So I change that exponent to positive and find his reciprocal. And so my final answer would be 1 over x to the 7th power. Okay, my next question says -3 1/5 divided by 2 2/5. To get that answer, I need to first change them both into improper fractions from their mixed numbers. So I have -16 over 5 divided by 12 over 5. And now I do KFC. Keep the first one the same, flip the second one, and change to a multiplication problem. I'm going to see I can cross simplify some things. So my 5s and 5s both become 1s. The 16 and the 12 I can divide by 4. And since I'm multiplying a negative times a positive, my answer is negative. I multiply across the top and get 4, multiply across the bottom and get 3. That's an improper fraction because the top is too big, and I change it to 1 and 1/3, and don't forget my negative sign. Okay, next question, 0.285. I'm going to turn that into a fraction. So I'm going to do that by putting 285 in my numerator, and then I count my place values. This is the tenths place, the hundredths place, and the thousandths place. So I put 285 over 1,000, and then I need to simplify. So I notice that they both can be divided by 5. And if I do 285 divided by 5, I get 57, and 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. And that was my final simplified answer. Next question, 3/5 minus 1/10. So if I'm going to subtract fractions, I need to get common denominators. My common denominator in this case is 10. The second fraction is already out of 10. The first fraction turns into 6 over 10. Then I subtract my numerators, keep the denominator, and now I simplify. 5/10 is the same as 1/2. Number 7, 8 parentheses negative 2/3. So the parentheses tell me to multiply. So I need to put 8 over 1 times -2 over 3. There's nothing to cross simplify. Positive times a negative is a negative. Multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. I have an improper fraction that changes into -5 and 1/3. Okay, the next question says 4a to the 3rd over 2a to the 5th. So I'm going to simplify. I need to do this 4 divided by the 2. That gives me 2. And then since I'm dividing, I'm going to subtract my exponent. So the a stays the same. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. But I can't leave that answer with a negative exponent. So I say, okay, the 2 just stays there. But my a to the negative second power becomes, remember I'm multiplying them, becomes 1 over a to the second power. So now if I'm multiplying 2 over 1 times 1 over a to the second power, I get 2 over a squared. Okay, next question, 3 1/4 minus 1 7/8. Since I'm subtracting, I must get common denominators. So 3 2/8 minus 1 7/8. Now I'm going to subtract the fraction part, 2/8 minus 7/8. I can't do that, I don't have enough eighths. So I need to borrow one. I'm going to borrow from this 3. So he's now a 2. And I have eighths. And so when I borrow that 1, I'm going to get 8/8. But I already have 2/8 here. And I borrowed one more that made 8/8. So now I have 10/8. So now 10/8 minus 7/8 is 3/8. And then 2 minus 1 is 1. And that answer cannot be simplified. Next question. Negative 4x to the second power times 5x. I'm going to multiply my numbers. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. X squared times x. Remember there's a little 1 here that we don't see. I add my exponents, x to the third. That's an okay answer to leave. Next question, negative 3 1/6. I need to change that into a decimal. So I'm going to do 1 divided by 6. 6 can't go into 1, so I have to put 0.0. 6 goes into 10 once. Gives me 6, 4 left over. Bring down a 0. 6 goes into 40 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. Subtract. I get 4 left over. I bring down a 0. Another 40. It goes in there 6 times. I can see the pattern. That 6 is going to keep repeating. So my answer is negative 3.16. And just the 6 is repeating. I could also put that answer as negative 3.1666 ... Next question, 4 to the negative third power. So I need to simplify this. So I change it to a positive exponent. So I think, okay, 4 to the third power is 4 times 4 times 4. So that answer would be 64. But then I have to find the reciprocal. So my answer is 1 over 64. Next question, number 13, 12x to the 8th over 3x. First thing I'm going to do is divide my numbers, and I get 4, and I have x to the 8th, and remember this is x to the first, so I subtract them and get x to the 7th. Number 14, 3/8 plus negative 7/8. First rule says get common denominators. It's already there. So I'm going to add my numerators. 3 plus negative 7 is negative 4 over 8. It stays the same. Simplify my answer, negative 1/2. Number 15, x squared times y to the 10th times x, y to the negative third. So I'm going to combine those things that can go together. So I have the same base with the x's. So I add my exponents and I get 3. And then my y's, I add my exponents and get 7. Number 16, 3/8 minus 1/6. Rule 1 says get common denominators. My least common denominator in this case is 24. In the first fraction, I multiplied by 3, so I have 9. Second one, I multiplied by 4, so I get 4. I subtract my numerators, keep the denominator. 5/24 is my final answer. Number 17, 4.06. I'm going to change that into a fraction. So I'm going to have 4, and then 6 over tenths, hundredths, over 100. Now I need to simplify it. They can both be divided by 2, 4, and 3 over 50. Number 18, I have negative 3/4 plus negative 1/2. First rule, common denominators. Negative 3/4 plus negative, and my common denominator is going to be fourths. So this is 2/4. I can keep it in parentheses if I want. So I add my numerators. Negative 3 plus negative 2 is negative 5/4. And that changes into negative 1 and 1/4. Number 19, 8/9 divided by 10 over 21. I'm going to do KFC. 8/9, keep, flip 21/10, and change to multiplication. And use cross simplification, divide these both by 2, 4 and 5, divide these both by 3, 3 and 7, multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. I have an improper fraction, so my answer is 1 and 13/15. Number 20, 5/7 plus -3/14. Rule 1, get common denominators. So my common denominator is 14. This fraction is already out of 14. This one becomes 10/14. 10 plus -3 is 7. Keep the denominator. 7/14 is 1/2. Number 21, 2y to the third times 3y to the -8th. I'm going to multiply the numbers. 2 times 3 is 6. And now I'm going to multiply y to the third times y to the -8th. So I'm going to keep the same base. And I'm going to add the exponents and get -5. But I can't leave a final answer with a negative exponent. So I say this is like 6 times 1 over y to the 5th. Or 6 over 1 times 1 over y to the 5th. So my final answer is 6 over y to the 5th. Number 22, -6.8. I'm going to change that into a fraction. So I have -6 and 8 over, and this is the tenths place. I simplify it, -6 and 4/5. Number 23, 1 and 4/5 plus 3 and 1/3. Rule 1 says get common denominators. So my common denominator is 15. And in the first fraction times 3, so 12. The second fraction times 5. So I add my fraction part. I get 17/15. Add my numbers. I get 4. But I can't leave it like this because 17/15 really means 1 and 2/15. And when I combine that with the 4, I get 5 and 2/15 as my final answer. Number 24, 6 and 2/9 minus 2 and 2/3. Rule 1, get common denominators. 6 and 2/9, my common denominator is going to be 9. So minus 2 and 6/9. But I'm trying to do 2/9 minus 6/9, which I can't do. It's going to give me negative, so I need to borrow. So I'm going to borrow 1 and make this a 5. And that 1 that I borrowed, I cut it up into 9 pieces. But I already had 2, so now I have 11 pieces. So now I have 5/9, and 5 minus 2 is 3. 3 and 5/9. Number 25, -7/12. Turn it into a decimal. 7 divided by 12. 12 doesn't go into 7, so I have to say into 70. It's going to go 5 times. 5 times 12 is 60. Subtract and get 10. Bring down a 0. 12 goes into 100. 8 times. 96. Subtract and get 4. Bring down another 0. 12 goes into 40 3 times. 3 times 12 is 36. Subtract 4. Bring down another 0. 12 goes into 40 3 times. 36. And I can tell I'm getting a repeating pattern. So my answer is -0.583. And the 3 is the only thing that's repeating. Number 26, -3/10 times 4/5. So I'm going to see if I can cross simplify. I can cross simplify, divide the 4 and 10 both by 2. Then I multiply my numerators, multiply my denominators. I have a negative times a positive. My answer is -6 over 25. Number 27, -8/9 minus 2/9. Rule 1, get common denominators. They're already there. So I'm going to subtract my numerators, -8 minus 2. So zoom, zoom. So -8 plus -2 is -10. Keep the same denominator. That's an improper fraction, so I have to change it to -1 and 1/9. Number 28, 14a to the third over 2a to the -2nd. First thing I'm going to do is divide the numbers. 14 divided by 2 is 7. And then I have the same base with the a, so I'm going to subtract the exponents. 3 minus negative 2, zoom zoom, is 5. 7a to the 5th. Number 29, 1 and 8/9 plus 5/18. Rule 1, get common denominators. My common denominator is 18. This one is already out of 18. This one was times 2. Add my numerators, 21 over 18. Add the whole numbers. 21 over 18 cannot stay that way. It's 1 and 3/18. Add it back with this 1. I have 2 and 3/18, which isn't simplified. They can both be divided by 3, 2 and 1/6. Number 30, 9 to the negative second power. I need to simplify it. So first, change the power to positive. That gives me 81. And then find the reciprocal, 1 over 81. Number 31, 3 and 7/8 minus 1 and 1/4. Rule 1, get common denominators. 8 is my common denominator. This one is times 2. Subtract my fraction part. Subtract my whole number part. That cannot be simplified. Number 32, negative 6, m to the third power, times 4, m to the negative fifth power. First thing I'm going to do is negative 6 times 4 is negative 24. And I'm going to keep the same base, m, add my exponents, negative 2, but I can't leave my answer like that. It's negative 24, and I know it's going to be over 1 times 1 over m squared. So my answer is negative 24 over m squared.